Well, 43 episodes is bound to happen eventually. I came to an episode that just didn't cut it live. Had a couple of technical issues. I'm just going to do this one over again. So this is Sass 43. We're going to revisit the style guide that I demoed in, I think, episode 32, where I was able to put together all the colors and into a map and iterate through those and show all those colors on the page. So what I'm going to do is do that with extends today and show a little mix in and how you can organize data together to make that happen. So let me go ahead and show the code, and let's see how flawlessly I tell you, we're going to be able to run through this. Cool. All right, so the first thing I do want to say real quick is the reason that you might want this extend. Sorry, to have this style guide. And really what it comes down to is common language, and apparently that's not going to work. All right, is to have a common language. What we want to be able to do is have everyone on the team using the same terms, using the same words for things. We're calling this main headline. Someone else might call it, the main title. Someone else might call it like blog title. What we're trying to do is get everyone using the same terminology so that every time someone refers to main headline, we know this main headline is actually this main headline here, this actual text extend of main headline. And that just keeps things simple when doing change requests and those types of things. I'm going to show you this real quick. And style guide, there we go. This is the style guide that we put together for our current site. I was having some local issues trying to compile. It was annoying. But as you can see, I've got a bunch of different sections of titles. I've got all my colors in here, have copy, have icons. So being able to put all these in one place, and it's also derived from code. So whenever you make changes in a feature branch, those changes actually show up here. So you can actually compare one style guide to the next and see the differences and those types of things. So really advantageous to get this into a markup where it's actually driven by your styles in your site. So what I'm going to show is how we can actually do that with our extends, because I talked about colors before. And what we're going to do is it's a couple pieces. We've got our extends, we've got a couple headlines, some feature copy, and you can do with those buttons and quotes and all sorts of stuff like that. And then what we do is we organize these into a map. You can use maps for anything these days. So we've got two different maps, or two different elements inside this map. One of them is this has a key of headlines, and the content inside of it is these two elements here. Now these are actually in a list. They're actually a space-separated list. You could do comma delimited, but then every time you add or delete something, you have to add that comma. It was a lot of overhead. So space delimited actually works perfectly here. Here in the copy, we actually have maps inside of this map. So here's our key, and then we have maps inside of it. And here's the key and the value there. The reason we're doing this is so that we can pass in an additional value for our text. In this case, I'm passing lorem, and I'll explain how that works in a little bit. So we've got our four styles. We're just setting some real basic stuff, different colors, different line height, different font size, those kind of things. And here's where the magic happens. We've got a little global counter, and this is going to be a counter that just ticks up one every single time we go through our map. And what that's going to do is it's going to step through every single one of our divs using an nth child. And child 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. And that's how we're going to be able to get away with not having to actually do anything with our markup, more than just have these static divs and spans over there. We also have this lorem, which I guess I could make this global as well. Doesn't make a difference. So it is global. Assuming that shows up. Okay, maybe not global, because I didn't use it elsewhere as global. Oh, global, let's go at the end of it. Never mind. Sorry. Anyway, failing already. So we have our variable of lorem, and this is just a variable. It's got a big, huge string in it, and it's our hipster ipsum text we're going to throw in. As you can see, it gets thrown in down here. So we've got a little label style that we're going to use to apply to the labels, just to make it look a little bit nicer. And then we're just going to throw margins of 1em at the bottom of every div. Plain and simple. Just kind of keeps some separation of it. We can override it. Any of these styles should override that. So if something has a different margin, it'll use that instead. This is kind of, I know sometimes it's nice, sometimes it shows a false margin where there's not. Mileage may vary. But the important part is here. What we're going to do is we're going to take our side extends and we're going to iterate through them. We're going to use this little each loop and we're going to go +1. So we're now on number 1. So our I variable is 1. So we're going to do nth child of 1. So that's going to go right here. So you see if I throw some text in here, that's actually that first element. So we're targeting that first one. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend that style guide label, which gives that black background, white text, and whatnot. And then we're going to use the content of it, of that extend group, which is just that name of headline or copy, and throw that in as a pseudo element. So after content, and it goes in as text. So that's how we're able to get the text in there without actually having to put any text in our markup. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the map that's inside of that. And there's two instances here. We're either going to have a list or we're going to have a map being passed in here. So we're going to have two different functions, loops, depending on what that is. So if it's not a map, so if it's just a list, like our two headlines there, we're going to go through each of the extends. And again, we're going to toggle our I up one more and one more. So we keep going through each of these divs. And we're going to do nth child of I. And in this case, I'm going to put it inside of a span. And the reason for this is I'm going to put pseudo elements on the span, the before and after, to put the text in there. Well, sometimes your extends actually have pseudo elements on them. Decorations like block quotes, having the quotes around it, or lines underneath, or to left or right, or whatever. So I'm basically allowing the pseudo element of the div to be controlled by that extend, and then using the span inside of it to attach the text to. That was a little bug that I found at one point and had fixed. So that's what we're doing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to extend the span, and actually that's a bug again. We're going to put this here. Extend, and there. That's it. All right. So we're extending on the div right here, because we're doing div nth child. We're going to extend that main headline, so it gets all the styles directly from your extend in code. So whatever code is, or whatever styles are being used throughout your site, this is going to use those exact same styles to extend the exact same thing. And then on the span inside of it, that's why I had to make that change. That's where we're going to put that content. And just in case we had some kind of pseudo element on the extend itself, we're not going to override it with this right here, because that's the content's going to be on the span. All right, I have to push that back upstream and get that fixed. All right, else, if it's not if it's not a map, so if it is a map, we're going to do this. It's going to be we're going to iterate through the map, because in this case we want each key value in extends. Again, we're just going to +1, +1, +1 through all of our divs, and that's going to drive our div nth child of 1. So what we're going to do is we are going to extend extend whatever that key value is. So feature copy, detail copy, whatever that is. Because again, we've gone around again, so we've already done this copy portion, and now we're on to what's inside of it. So as we're looping through, then looping through what's inside of it. Okay, so and then for the pseudo elements of the span, we're going to use the key, which is the feature copy, in this case feature copy, and then for the after, we have a couple options here. What I did was I've got a lorem value that if you pass in lorem as the value of that key, it's going to go and pull that variable and drop that text in there. So you can see where we're using the lorem ipsum text in there. If the value is not lorem, it'll just pass that value through. So if I go back up here to my to this map, instead of lorem, I put my name in there. We can see it's going to update down here to my name is Micah. So if you got really specific text that you want to test, say like this text is always just a couple words, or this text is always like a date field, or this text is whatever. The date field, actually, that's a good example. And our, I have no idea why I'm putting this in, 2015, we'll talk about next year. So if it's always going to be a year, like a date line or something, you can actually pass that in, and you can see what the text looks like with that. Or you can just pass in lorem and it'll pull that in. You don't have to constantly be typing in these long strings into the maps here. So that's what it does. And the advantage of this is that your style guide is actually pulling directly from your extends. It's just extending the exact same code that the rest of your site is doing. You never have to worry about changing this markup as long as you have lots of divs. And the nice thing is these divs have absolutely no height, no size until you apply something to it. So you can have like a bazillion of these, and it's not going to cause a that is if I don't screw up and paste it in the wrong place. All right. Hopefully I don't screw up too bad. Apparently I put it in the wrong place. There we go. Get rid of you. All right. So it's not going to cause a bunch of like extra stuff to be in there. I gotta get rid of this last one. It's in there somewhere. Anyway, so you can have a bunch of these spans and it's not a problem. You can do the same thing with a set of all of your colors. You do the same thing with a set of all of your icons, and just iterate through a list of them and apply them using this a little eye counter and just going through using nth child. So that's what we're doing. That's a much easier explanation of it than my fail-ridden demo previously. So I'll delete that other one, leave this one up there. Check this out. The gist is up there. Obviously, I just tweeted it out. It'll also be on the YouTube as well. So you can check it out and play around with it and use it yourself. So if you like it, if you have other ideas, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to tweet at me at Micah Godbold or at SassBytes. Check out other videos at youtube.com/SassBytes. And this is my one mulligan. I don't get another one for another 43 podcasts. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Later.